Welcome. You know, in healthcare, we're not just guarding numbers on a spreadsheet. We're protectors of some of the most sensitive personal information on the planet. And it's all tied directly to patient care. So if you're someone who manages or protects that data, you've come to the right place. We're going to break down the absolute must-knows of information security, specifically for the healthcare world. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with what security even means. Then we'll get into the three core ideas that everything else is built on. From there, we'll look at the threats we're all up against. And finally, we'll talk about how to plan for the worst and what to do when something actually happens.
All right, let's dive right in. Before we can build a strong defense, we have to make sure we're all speaking the same language. We're going to define a couple of key terms and then, get this, reveal a pretty surprising truth about where most security problems actually come from. So let me ask you something. When you picture a major data breach at a hospital, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it some shadowy hacker in a hoodie, a team of cybercriminals halfway across the world, maybe even a disgruntled employee? Well, what if I told you it was something much, much simpler?
Yep, the answer is simple human error. That's it. It's not some Hollywood movie plot. More often than not, it's an honest mistake. Somebody clicked a bad link in an email or used a password that was too easy to guess. And knowing that, well, it completely changes how we have to think about security. It isn't just about the tech, it's really about people, our habits, and our training. And that brings us to another key point. You hear the terms cybersecurity and information security thrown around a lot, sometimes like they're the same thing. They're not. Think of it this way. Cybersecurity is focused purely on the digital stuff, your networks, your computers, your software. But information security, that's the whole shebang. It's the big umbrella that covers protecting information in any form, whether it's on a server, in a patient's physical file chart, or even written on a whiteboard. Okay, so with those definitions down, let's get to the absolute bedrock of this entire field. Seriously, every security policy you ever see, every control that gets put in place, it's all designed to protect three fundamental principles. These three words right here. This is the CIA triad. It's a simple but incredibly powerful framework that guides literally everything we do. So let's break down what each of these really means, especially for us in healthcare. First up, we have confidentiality. This is the one we probably think of most often. It's all about privacy, secrecy, and access control. It boils down to one simple promise, making sure that only the right people can see the right information, period. And in healthcare, this is everything. A patient's medical record is packed with intensely personal info. Confidentiality is the principle that makes sure only the doctors, nurses, and other staff directly involved in that patient's care can actually see it. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a legal and ethical cornerstone of medicine, baked into laws like HIPAA. Okay, the second pillar of our triad is integrity. Now, this one is all about trust. It's about ensuring that the information we're looking at is accurate, reliable, and hasn't been messed with, either by accident or on purpose. Just think about a patient's prescription in an electronic health record system. We have to be 100% certain that the drug, the dosage, the frequency, that none of it has been changed without authorization. A simple typo could have devastating consequences. That's why things like audit logs, which track every single change made to a record, are so crucial for maintaining data integrity. And that brings us to our third and final principle, availability. This one sounds simple, but it is absolutely critical. Because what good is perfectly confidential and trustworthy data if the people who need it can't get to it when it matters most? Availability is all about keeping the systems on and the information flowing. You might remember hearing about that massive airline outage caused by a botched software update. Thousands of flights grounded, chaos at airports, a huge problem for sure. But now, just imagine that same scenario in a hospital. Imagine a ransomware attack takes the network down. An ER doctor can't access a patient's history in the middle of a crisis. Suddenly, a lack of availability isn't just an inconvenience, it's a life or death situation. Okay, so we've got our three pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, let's talk about all the things out there that are trying to knock them down. What are the common threats and weaknesses we're really facing? First, let's get a term straight. A vulnerability is basically a weakness, a crack in the armor. It could be a bug in a piece of software, a flaw in a procedure, or even a gap in employee training. Attackers then use something called an exploit to wiggle through that crack and do damage. And what do these look like in the real world of healthcare? Well, it could be that old MRI machine in the basement running on outdated software that can't be patched. It could be a doctor using password 123 to log into the main record system.
Or it could be someone in billing getting tricked into clicking a link in a very convincing but fake email. Do you see the pattern here? So many of these circle right back to what we said at the beginning: human error.
Now, one really common type of attack is called a denial of service or DOS attack. The easiest way to think about this is like a digital traffic jam. The attacker just floods a hospital's website or network with so much junk traffic that it gets completely overwhelmed. And when that happens, legitimate users, like nurses trying to log their notes, can't get through. The system is just too busy.
And this is a perfect example of how it all connects back. A DOS attack isn't trying to steal data, so it's not about confidentiality. It's not trying to change data, so it's not about integrity. Its one and only goal is to cause an outage. It is a direct, head-on assault against availability. So knowing the bad guys are out there is one thing, but how does a hospital actually get ready? You can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. You need a real strategy, and that always starts with figuring out what matters most. And the way we do that is with something called a Business Impact Assessment, or a BIA. A BIA is really just a structured process for asking some tough but really important questions. Questions like, what are the absolute most critical things we do here every day? What systems do those things rely on? And what would the real-world impact be on our patients, on our budget, on our reputation, if those systems suddenly went down? And this isn't just guesswork, right? It's a formal process. As you can see, you start by identifying those critical functions like the electronic health record system or patient admissions. Then you map out the risks, figure out the potential impacts, and use all that information to decide how to respond and what you'll need to recover. It's all about making sure you spend your time, money, and energy protecting the things that are truly essential to the hospital's mission. So let's be real. Even with the best plans in the world, sometimes things still go wrong. There's a saying in security: it's not a matter of if you'll have an incident, but when. The whole key is making sure that when it happens, the response is calm and professional, not chaotic and panicked. A good incident response plan isn't just a single to-do list, it's a cycle. It starts with the immediate response, stopping the bleeding and figuring out what happened. Then you move into recovery, which is all about getting those critical systems back up and running. Next up is remediation, fixing the root problem so it can't happen again, and then maybe the most important step of all, lessons learned. This is where you do a deep dive on the whole event to see how you can get better, making your defenses that much stronger for next time. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. We've talked about the CIA triad as these three equally important pillars. But in the real world, in the trenches of healthcare, they can actually conflict with each other. So think about it. In a true life or death emergency, what's more important? The absolute strict confidentiality of a patient's entire medical file, or the immediate availability of their known allergies to an ER doctor trying to save their life? There's no easy answer, is there? And learning how to navigate those complex, high-stakes trade-offs, well, that's what being an information professional in healthcare is all about.